Hey, Twitter. I thought I would put a response video together for this just because I've seen this talking point going around and Daniel isn't the only person who has said this, in the last 6 months or the last 6 years even. But he's just kind of the most recent version of this talking point, and I thought I would take a look at it and kind of just break it down for my own local context to just see if this would be a workable solution for everybody. So this is in response to his tweet, "The affluent already have school choice. Let everyone else have it." So let's just take a look at the first part of this, see what he has to say, and kind of see what the data has to say.
Hey Twitter, you caught me about to go on a run thinking about how the affluent already have school choice, right? People that have a lot of money, they can choose to live in an area with the best schools where the housing prices effectively lock poorer families out. They can choose to pay a private school tuition. They have the time and money to jump through a bunch of hoops so they can attend a charter school or they can get one of the few vouchers that are out there already. The affluent already have school choice. Now, what my old student
So he goes on to describe how his students used to maybe forge addresses on school forms so that way they could get into, public schools that they would not, of the areas that they would not be living in. So, I mean, that's a thing that probably happens. People have been prosecuted for it. I recognize that as an issue. But let's just tackle this issue on its face, right? Let everyone else have school choice through these vouchers. So I thought I would just kind of think, okay, if students were going to be getting a voucher, what sort of amount would they be getting for that voucher? And so I looked at Iowa's per pupil student funding, and I found that it was $6,736. So let's go ahead and write that number down here real quick, 6,736. So what I imagine is that if the state were to implement a voucher program, instead of giving schools that amount per pupil, they would be giving that money to the students to spend, on homeschooling or in a private program or whatever the case might be. And that's how it has worked in some places. I looked at just Arkansas's here off the top of the list. So the state's per pupil amount or the cost of private school tuition, whichever is less. So the next step was just kind of looking at some Iowa private schools, and I found some in the central Iowa, sort of in the Des Moines metro area. All right, there's several. All right, so I picked some of the bigger ones, some of the big ones. This is a pretty representative sample. So I just went, for example, to Grandview Christian School. So already, they're a sectarian parochial school, which is fine, whatever, that's your choice. So I looked at the registration fees. All right, let's see. So for new students, academic fees, $425, registration fees, $200 or $475. But then when we get to tuition, all right, for preschool, right, is one thing. So your first student, $2,003. And those things are, I paid an exorbitant amount for my kids' daycare, and that's not even related to this private Christian academy. But if I wanted to send my now kindergartner there to school, it cost $6,700. So after the academic fees, after the registration, $6,700. Remember that tuition voucher that I would be getting is $6,736. So it might cover that amount for my K through fifth grader. And then you add in the fees on top of it. So resource room fees, sports participation fees. All right, if you're a 3-sport athlete or something, tack on an extra $500, milk and juice prices, okay, whatever. So yeah, if you're a high school student, right, that number jumps up to $8,200. Okay, so remember that voucher amount is for $6,700. So if I'm a poor family with a voucher from the state, my voucher is going to only cover a percentage of this amount. All right, so maybe looking at private parochial schools is one thing. So I looked at what is like probably the best independent private school in the entire state. And, maybe in the Midwest, it's known internationally, the Maharishi School. So the Maharishi School is a place that they practice like transcendental meditation. They're a progressive school. They practice a lot of project-based learning. They might be a place that really is more aligned to my kind of pedagogy and my sort of thinking about learning and living. So I looked at their tuition rates, okay, day, student, tuition, and financial aid. So if we just go there. So, all right. So pre-K, okay, if I sent my pre-kindergartner there, it would be $6,600 for tuition for full-time. My kindergartner, my 5-year-old right now, $6,600. That's almost the entire amount of that voucher right away. But if I had a 9th through 12th grader, right, we're talking about almost $20,000 to attend. So my $6,700 voucher is going to cover a fraction of that percentage. It's going to be prohibitive for me already, all right? So let's kind of look elsewhere and kind of see as other issues popped up here too. So I went to Dowling Catholic's website. I mean, Dowling Catholic, great private school, competitive in athletics, competitive in academics. And so I looked at their tuition. All right, $8,400 plus fees for parish participating families, and 11,800 plus fees for non-participating families. So let's say I'm a poor parent who is trying to send my kid to Dowling Catholic High School, but say don't participate in their religious parish. All right, maybe I value that education, but I might not identify personally as a Catholic. I'm going to pay a premium for my kid to participate in that system. So that's kind of another way in which these private systems are stacked against people of different backgrounds. If you're not a parish participating Catholic, you're going to have to pay a premium for your kid to go to Dowling Catholic High School. And then I started to look at some of the other private parochial sectarian schools in my area, and I noticed some more things that might leave some students out. So I noticed from the Ankeny Christian Academy, right, they have the civil rights disclaimer on the end of their website. So the ACA does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, gender, nationality, and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, age, etc., etc., etc. Note, as a bona fide religious organization, we impose qualifications based on a bona fide religious purpose. Refer to school's doctrinal statement. Sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, and creed have been excluded from this policy in accordance with Iowa Code 216.9, etc. So what that allowance is in the Iowa Code is it allows schools with a bona fide religious purpose to actively discriminate based on sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, and creed. And in fact, in order to join these schools, you have to align with their values and with their with their statements of faith. So yeah, also, I went to their handbook for the Ankeny Christian Academy, and it's not even in addition, it's the case that they certainly can discriminate based on gender identity, sexual orientation, etc. But they even have a clause in their student handbook that says, of course, since they're a religious institution, believing the biblical role is to work in conjunction with the home on occasions in which the atmosphere or conduct within a home or the activities of the student are counter to or in opposition to the biblical lifestyle the school teaches. The school reserves the right within its sole discretion to refuse admission of an applicant or discontinue enrollment of a current student. This includes, but is not necessarily limited to, living in, practicing, condoning, or supporting sexual immorality, including but not limited to sex outside of marriage, homosexual acts, bisexual acts, gender identity different than the birth sex chromosomal level, promoting such practices, or otherwise the inability to support the moral principles of the school. Now, again, I don't have any problem with these schools existing, and they've been around for a long time, but to say that a private school voucher is going to be the thing that saves students who are trapped in public schools can't be the answer to everyone, because maybe not everybody fits into the narrow boxes that these sectarian schools want to put people in. And of course, there's additional things as well. So when you go to the Des Moines Christian School, another wonderful private academy, I'm sure, all right, it says that the first admissions criteria is not academic and behavior standards, but is in fact a spiritual commitment that at least one parent or guardian must be a professing believer in Jesus Christ and provide a written Christian testimony. It is preferred that both parents provide written faith testimonies. At least one parent must be in full agreement with and willingly sign the DMC Statement of Faith. Students and at least one parent are members and and or regular attenders at a church in which the Bible is sincerely believed to be the inspired word of God, which is the basis for all life and learning. So again, let's imagine that I'm a secular family, right? Or imagine I'm a Muslim student, okay? A private voucher is not going to have currency in a system that doesn't value my particular beliefs. So, right, where do I go, all right? And of course, for that privilege, if I'm a high school student at the Des Moines Christian School, I'm footing the bill for 10 grand a year. So again, my voucher is for $6,700. If my faith happens to align with theirs, I'm going to have to pay, $3,300 on top of that amount in order that the voucher doesn't cover. So the other thing that we're ignoring here is the basic economics, which says that, if supply and demand are interacting in a market, that when the demand increases, the price for that good is going to increase as well. So let's imagine that what happens is that in a system where every student is given a voucher, what's going to happen to that price of tuition? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? So how far is that $6,700 voucher going to get me if the market rate for private tuition goes up as a result, right? Parents are already paying these rates. They're going to get, wealthy parents are already paying these rates. They're going to get a check in the mail that's basically a coupon off their, sectarian religious school admission, okay? So, the other aspect of this, and not to dogpile the point on here, but private schools don't have to take every kid regardless of their religious beliefs, but they don't have to admit your kid if they have poor behavior or bad academic performance. In fact, one of the schools that I looked at said that they won't take your kid if they've ever been expelled from another school. So those doors are closed to you if your kid has had, a bad string of behavior. So there's not a lot of accountability there. You want to talk about market accountability. If they don't set your kid, you can't hold that system accountable. And in fact, the most troubling aspect of this for me is that these schools don't have to take kids with special needs, all right? Or at least they don't have to treat them the same way that public schools do. So, right, those things come to us from the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and that says by law that kids have to have a free and appropriate public education, due process, and then a right to an IEP. But that does not apply to private schools. In fact, any services, special education services that are provided in a private setting have to be funded by the public school themselves. So when you're saying that we're going to cut a check, a voucher, right, for the amount that would normally go to a public school, well, you're going to take the special education services of a public school without public funding of that thing, right? Your check and your tuition dollars, your voucher, are going to go to the private system that then you're going to get special education services for free provided by the public school, or you might have to pay out of pocket for your own evaluation and your own services, okay? So imagine all of the services that public schools provide, either by law or, really by law. Private schools don't have to cover those things, okay? So again, let's think about the actual consequences of dismantling public institutions and giving that money into private school hands. Like, there's no wonder why the private parochial schools and the people at Dowling Catholic are the biggest school choice advocates, because they know they would get a check for $6,700 and be able to raise their rates, all right, while not necessarily accepting more kids. So I think there's a lot of issues with this notion that affluent parents already have school choice, so we should let everyone else have it. The one thing that we haven't really tried is to adequately fund and equitably fund those schools that we identify as poor performing, probably due to the historically marginalized and socioeconomically deprived communities in which they serve, and those formulas that fund schools that are made inequitable by their reliance on property taxes. So maybe there's a thing that we can try before cutting a check to everyone's private school tuition to sort of fracture us along sectarian religious boundaries. So I don't know how to stop this video. But I hope you all have a good night. It's been a long day. All right, what you see is what you get here, and let me know what you think in the comments, I guess.